Alumina titanate.
What's that?
That term has been kicking around now for a few years, right? Everybody's used to your typical ceramic monolith,
Sure.
gasoline, catalytic converter. We know about the rolled steel, the foil converters.
Right.
We've talked about DPF
Right.
and DOC, SRC or SRS. You know, those ones that have no
SCR,
value that
SCRs.
we don't mess with those. There's no value, so we don't.
Selective catalytic reduction.
Yeah, we
SCRs.
don't recycle those. But this aluminum titanate.
There's no precious metal in that.
Let's talk about the pros and cons. What are some of the pros? Why are the companies that are making these catalytic converters? Why did they switch over?
Okay, so it's a new substrate. Okay, aluminum titanate. Now, this is the way I understand it. Now I could be off a little bit on this, but I think I understand it fairly well. When you look at the catalytic converter, you look at the cross section of the catalytic converter. It has these channels that the exhaust blows through.
Right.
And inside the channel is the precious metal loading. So it's doped with precious metal. So as the exhaust flows through, it's coming in contact with those host sites that host the precious metals. So the catalytic activity occurs on the exhaust as it flows through those channels to the exhaust pipe, okay? And it's converting those noxious gases. Now, if we talk about it in terms of generations, first generation catalytic converter, say, had 150 cells per square inch, right? Mm-hmm. So, inch this way, inch that way. If you count them, it'll be 150, right? That's first generation. So they could dip coat it and load X amount of precious metal on there. And then they went to the next generation, and they were able to double the size, or the number, I should say, double the number of cells per square inch. CPSI, right? Cells per square inch, CPSI. So they went from 150 to 300 cells per square inch. Now, that's a doubling of the amount of wall that the exhaust comes in contact with, doubling of the amount of wall or host sites that the precious metal could be dip coated onto. So now you've effectively doubled the amount of precious metal loaded into that catalytic converter.
Right.
From 150 to 300 cells per square inch CPSI, cells per square inch CPSI. Mm-hmm. Well, what you're seeing today, it's doubled again. From 300 to now 600 cells per square inch. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Now, when you dip coat that, you have that many more walls or host sites. Again, you doubled the amount the first generation, now you doubled it the next generation, how much precious metal could be loaded, right?
That's what they're looking at.
That's what they're looking at, right? Now, with these increasing air quality standards that need to be met worldwide,
right?
Okay, manufacturers are, they're up against a moving target. These air quality standards keep getting stricter and stricter and stricter and stricter. So, in order to meet the demands, right? Mm-hmm. They have to innovate. They have to produce these converters to obtain those standards, up to those standards. So how have they been able to do it? Well, by increasing the amount of precious metal, increasing the number of host sites the exhaust comes in contact with, doubling.
Right.
Amazing.
Keeps
it's
going
quite
up.
Amazing, actually,
yeah.
when you think about it from an engineering perspective. Because when you look at a first generation, second, third generation converter, and you see, wow, look how many holes are in this current generation converter, right?
Yeah.
So now they're at a point where I believe that this silica-based host ceramic monolith, honeycomb, whatever you want to call it, is getting so thin, it's becoming unstable because real-world driving conditions, you've got, vibration, you hit potholes, and then damage occurs from vibration, and so they fail because they're getting thinner and thinner and thinner. These walls,
Right.
at 600 cells per square inch, they're
That's a
okay, right? But if you go to 1,200 cells per square inch, now we're
thinner and
talking
thinner, huh?
about a whole nother ball game here.
Right.
So manufacturers have been forced to look at other chemistries in the manufacture of substrates or honeycomb. Okay? So it's not silica any longer. They're moving towards other. They're not using silicon carbide for this. I think it's probably because they can't get it that thin.
Yeah.
Okay? So they've developed other chemistries, and one of them is aluminum titanate. And from what I understand is that's very robust and strong material, and you can get to 1,200 cells per square inch. What happens if you have to double from there?
Right.
And you go to 2,400 cells per square inch? What happens?
How thin is that
How
going to be?
thin does that get?
Yeah.
Right? So that material has to be strong enough to be able to stand up to real-world driving conditions.
Right.
So your host sites increase, the ability to load more precious metal on the same converter increases.
Right.
Of course, the values of the converters increase because of the sheer amount of precious metal that's loaded, right? But let's go back to the substrate for a moment. It's aluminum titanate. That's what you started with, right?
Right.
Can we put that into a furnace and melt it like we do silica?
No, I think that's going to be challenging
No.
for the smelters.
No. From what I understand, aluminum titanate is so stable and robust that even at those furnace temperatures, it does not melt or slag off.
Wow.
So you cannot separate the precious metal from the substrate with a furnace operation. This is what I understand. So therefore it remains as an unmelted residue in the slag, holding on or containing the precious metals that was doped onto it.
Wow.
So if it comes in as a ground material and goes into the furnace, it gets hung in the slag. There's losses of precious metals to the slag, and the smelters will lose money on aluminum titanate. And now,
Right.
what else can occur? Well, you could have an incomplete melt where you're not able to get a molten metal and a molten slag fraction. You'll get a molten metal and a molten slag partial fraction and an unmelted partial fraction of
Accumulation.
congealed materials that
Right.
that holds the precious metal that can't be separated. That's a problem.
Can't be
That's
recovered.
a real problem.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it? And look, what we're seeing also is the introduction of GPFs, gas particulate filters. Now, this is a new thing. Gas particulate filters are designed to basically do the same thing as a diesel particulate filter, where a diesel particulate filter is trapping the soot. It's a soot trap.
Right.
Well, the gas particulate filters are there to trap those solids that are coming out of the tailpipe. And so it's this aluminum titanate material that they're using as a flow-through for the gas particulate filters, as well as catalytic converters on newer models. So they're already in the new model years. They're already on the road. I don't think they've really entered the recycling stream yet, but I believe in the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to see a significant
more.
number of these aluminum titanate substrates enter the recycling stream. And once they enter the recycling stream, and if they get mixed in and they get detected by the smelter, these loads are going to get rejected. So it's a real problem.
Yeah.
And I've been saying for a couple of years internally as we discuss this upcoming problem that is now a current problem that's going to be a nightmare in about 3 years.
Right.
It's going to be a nightmare. Okay. what do you do with that material? There's only one way to treat it. And it isn't pyrometallurgically, it's hydrometallurgy. It has to be done wet chemistry.
Right.
It has to be processed wet because you don't need to melt it. You just need to extract. And if it can be done wet, and we know it can because wet chemistry does work on these materials, and we have proven results on that, that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's the game changer.
That's the game changer. So, for those of you out there in this industry that are not concerned about it, you should start looking into it and trying to figure out, keep these materials segregated, separated from your DPF, your DOC, your AutoCAD. Keep your aluminum titanate away.
Yeah.
Don't blend it in, because if you do, you're going to cause a lot of trouble and headache for yourselves.